Welcome to Outside the Box, a short conversation about how food service is changing at scale, what operators are facing, what systems are under pressure, and what becomes essential as expectations rise. Today, we're talking about what the guest experience really looks like when everything has to work together, and what happens when it doesn't. Mallory Mahoney is the Senior Director of Marketing at Cinchio Solutions, a digital platform that touches ordering, POS, kitchen management, payments, and guest sentiment across some pretty different environments: zoos, aquariums, QSRs, resorts, and more. Before Cinchio, she was on the operator adjacent side at SSA Group, so she's seen this from both directions. Mallory, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ashley. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So let's jump right in. So you've been on both sides of the operation, SSA Group on one, and now Cinchio as the technology partner. How does that shape the way you build and bring products to market?
Yeah, I think it's really like a guiding light of how we bring things to the market. Because working on the operator side, you learn a lot about the perspective of an operator. I think when you work in technology, you're just like, oh, just go implement this and get this done, right? But operators have more on their mind than like their POS system, right? They're trying to like manage people, manage weather in a lot of different businesses and how it impacts them, staffing, legal requirements, lots of different things that are pressuring them. And I think the biggest thing is like, can you create technology that's not a burden for operators, right? Like we talk a lot about features, but the biggest feature that operators care about is, are you solving my problem today? And is it easy to use?
Right. No, that's exactly right. So Cinchio, touches a lot of parts of the operation. What does it look like to manage all of that as one platform rather than, a lot of maybe disconnected tools?
Yeah, that's really what like Cinchio's like core offering is and where we think we bring value, right? Is you're trying to bring everything into one place, because coming from the operator side, that's the challenging piece of working with these fragmented systems. So we're trying to consolidate it into like one portal, right? So when things are melting down, hundreds of orders are coming through, people are upset or people are happy, they can be happy too. You have one place to go to be able to solve all of your problems instead of having to be like, what's my login for this? What's my login for that? Yeah. And then you start creating insecure logins like I do, then you have like password 1, 2, 3.
Yes, mine's 1 exclamation point or 2 exclamation points or 3 exclamation points. Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure. Well, and I think there's something to that too when it comes to then, how you engage with your customers, to where, you're bringing all these pieces there. You can see a lot of the different pieces of their operation and be able to have meaningful dialogue on maybe where some gaps are, where some opportunities are, and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, I think that's like the nice thing too, kind of to your point, is like you can evolve with someone too.
Yeah.
If you're bringing all the pieces together, like by yourself or with like great partners, you can help someone transform their business, right? Like the buzzword is always digital transformation, but you have to have someone who, is in it with you and at the core of it and bringing those systems together and helping you transform.
Right. No, that's absolutely right. So, I think one of the things too, like guests don't experience technology so much as they experience kind of an entire operation of something that's happening. How do you think the gap between what the systems do and what the guest like actually feels in that environment?
Yeah, it's always that challenge in technology of like, how are you fulfilling an operator's need and a guest need too? And I always say, like, when technology falls down, that's when guests remember it the most, right? And that's where you can walk away and that negative guest experience or sentiment can come up. I think the key thing there is like doing usability testing in your products and making sure you're actually asking people, is this what we want? Is it meeting your need, right? There's always going to be a little bit of like a tech, like adoption curve, and some people are better at it, but get all those people testing your products to make sure that it's easy and it's solving their problems.
Right. Well, and again, that there's some intuitiveness now, even with being able to use technology in different places and platforms. And some, honestly, in some places too, like I prefer it. I feel more in control of what I'm doing and that sort of thing when you maybe were interacting with a kiosk, someplace placing an order. Like I think some people naturally go to that, which gives them that better experience too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, sometimes I'm in a line at a restaurant and people are queued up and like, it's, you could be annoyed, like, oh, there's a long line, but actually there's technology sitting there and at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And I think that's where like some process stuff can come into play, is like also marketing your technology, making sure it's part of your flow going in. Yes. At the, at the beginning of the end of a guest experience are so important for like creating like a great moment of like hospitality and delivering them.
No, absolutely. So you've worked across all kinds of different environments, zoos, aquariums, campgrounds, QSRs, what is consistent with that guest, kind of wanting regardless of where they are?
Yeah, I think what guests want is just like no lines, right? And the simplest thing. I mean, I think like lines, if you ever do surveys, people are like, I hate lines. I mean, we
Yeah.
both hate lines, I'm
Yes,
sure.
absolutely. Yes.
And I think that's the consistency of how it shows up might be slightly different, right? Of the environment in the service of like a restaurant or a retail store could be
Yeah.
slightly different, but people are looking to make things simple, right? You don't want whatever, if you're at an RV campground, a zoo, you don't want a negative experience of like, wow, I had a really awful time in a restaurant. And for that to be your lasting memory, you
Yes.
want it to be like, oh, I saw a wild dog. And that was so cool.
Right.
Right. Or something like that. You don't want those negative things. You want streamlined, easy processes with no lines.
Right. And I think that's one of the, kind of cool things that we do and work together is that, even without the lines, like we're allowing the guests, through mobile ordering, pick up through our solutions to keep enjoying the experiences that they're at and not having to wait in line or spend too much time like just doing, kind of sitting around waiting in the establishments to wait for food.
Yeah, I think like your guys' solution in our partnership together is so amazing because I think it solves a lot of problems that people don't want, right? Like you can do things in advance and then your food is also secure and
Yes.
easy to pick up and stuff's not missing, right? People aren't like rifling through their bags and everything. It really is creating that convenience and like getting you on to like what you're really there for.
Yeah, for sure. So where now are you seeing the most friction in food service operations? Is it, technology? Is it process? Is it a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like I think process is always like a key thing of like how you like define of like how do things flow together and making sure that those processes are figured out in advance, right? Like when you go in and you do an install, if you're not sure of like all the processes of how people do their operations, that's where technology can become challenging, right? And where you can have misses of like, oh, like we didn't know that we actually route this one thing over to this separate cook area.
Right.
And that's like not technology, that's the process of understanding those things. And then I still think there's some tech stuff, right? Like consolidation of different platforms and bringing them together and making sure it's easy, like I said, for that operator to have easy flow and for them not have to think, but just deliver those great moments.
No, absolutely. So as I mentioned, like we've worked together across several partners now, the Pittsburgh Zoo and the Florida Aquarium being just a couple of them. Like, what does it look like when a technology partnership really works in the field versus just saying, hey, we're partners, on paper?
Yeah. I mean, I think about our partnership and I think it's ideal and like what everyone would want, like as partners in technology and then also for people who are receiving our technology, right? Because when installs were done, like our product team, our engineering teams were communicating with like your ops team and your engineering team on the ground. We had done tons of testing beforehand, like outside of a live production environment, saving people time, which is money, right? And stress. And then like thorough training of like our platform to yours and how they connect. And then also I think like data exchange between us, like we're consuming insights that you guys provide. So it's centralized to our platform and providing, text messaging and easy webhook integrations into yours. So it's all just feels continuous.
Right. And that, going back to the previous conversation, like helps with process because then it's a smooth thing as we go through training with the teams on site, even training of the guests that come in on how to use everything. It makes it that much easier.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like one solution. I think that's like the process, right? It feels like we're connected. We're cousins, right? Or siblings, from the same family.
Yes, absolutely. So when you're kind of going through some of those integrations, at your venues, what is something that maybe gets underestimated?
Yeah, I think a lot of times the time to integrate, right? Mm-hmm. And the adoption of like both parties to like problem solve in that like adoption, right? Like everyone says like open API, but then how do you actually partner together and the time to actually get that to market and making sure, as you said, that the process of that integration makes sense and you're not adding like, sure, you're integrated, but you don't want to add like 10 extra steps in the process. Otherwise, it's not solving anything,
Yeah. Well, and that workflow at the zoo could be very different than that workflow at the aquarium because they have different needs. They have different things that are doing and working through all that sort of stuff too.
Yep, exactly.
So Cinchio, you continue to evolve in the solutions that you have, but the markets that you operate in. So what does it look like taking a platform like yours built for one environment and kind of moving it and adapting it to the other ones?
Yeah, a couple different things. Obviously, from like a marketing standpoint, a lot of like understanding like what are the guest needs and what are really the things that matter to them, and making sure we communicate that, and when we deliver those solutions, make sure that's built for them. And then I think, integrations are kind of a key point too, right? Of like every place has its own unique needs. Like a campground is so different than a zoo, which is so different than a restaurant that's operating. I think there's similarities, but it's really getting to know your customer, that market, and finding the unique things that they need, and then building something at scale that also could work for those other markets too, if that makes sense, right? Like we have something that works for a restaurant that's applicable to a zoo and an RV campsite, but you want it to be like usable and solving a problem here, but also usable and not a waste of development for these markets as well.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so what are the conversations you're having now with operators that maybe you weren't having a couple years ago?
Yeah, I mean, obviously AI is like the number one thing. Of like, well, how are you bringing AI to this? What does AI do? And I think with that, people focus a lot more on data and what they can extract and the insights that they get from it, because really that's what AI is, right? It's large language models of data.
Right.
So I think the access to information is like the conversation that comes up more and more. Like, how can we extract this into our own data lakes and use it? Like in our partnership, right? Like our data is together. And I think that like makes something or an integration or technology more powerful. Like you're connecting systems, but you're also connecting the data between those systems. And I think that matters more and more to people because they're looking for insights and margin and all of that.
Well, and it's seeing, to me too, it's seeing data that you didn't have before. You didn't have these types of data points before implementing, either one of our solutions, which I think is, something really valuable for these operators today when, things are costing more, labor sometimes is hard to come by. Like knowing how you can kind of, utilize this information to make different decisions on how to run your business is really helpful too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the speed of making those decisions too, right? Like data is no longer, I mean, I started my career in like finance. You're no longer lagging like a month behind, right? You can make things in real time. And I think that changes a lot of the conversation too.
Sure. All right. So one more question. We've asked all of our guests, what is something about your job that most people don't see?
Oh man. I mean, I would joke and say my legs because I work from home a lot, right? So no one sees how tall I am. But really,
you got a literal answer to the question.
But really, I think a lot of it is like guest research and like talking to customers of like, what are your needs? And then that feedback loop back to like our operations and our product team, right? Like, like marketing, we talk to customers a lot. Like you, Ashley, I know you do, like get great insights, but then it's that feedback loop back to the people who are building your products as well. And translating, I would say like marketers like know people and they translate like their needs, and translating it internally too, I think is something that people don't see that often.
Yeah, no, that's really great. So Mallory, thank you for being here. This is a perspective we don't get often enough, talking about how we go through, different things, gone through the guest side, the technology side, the experiences when they're all supposed to be working together. We really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Ashley.
And thank you all for watching. Keep an eye out for more episodes. They're coming soon. I'm Ashley McNamara. Thank you for joining us on Outside the Box.